In this demonstration, we'd like to talk about policies and procedures. For all of your employees, these policies are changing all the time, and it impacts each person differently. As users log in, now this could be your intranet they're logging into, or we could provide the intranet. Either one, we might show this user a list of all the latest policies. We might show all of the requests made to changes to policies. We might want to add a new policy at any time that we want to. And they're very simple. We can manage PDF, Word documents, and this gives everyone their own interface. So the other nice thing that it does is it allows us to show only the right policies to the right people, meaning based on their job title. As this user logs in, well, we know their job, we know what part of the country they work in. Well, we only need to show them the policies that pertain to their specific job. And if you're curious how we're able to do that, our integration with tools like Active Directory, SAML, and this is where we set this up in the back end. This is how we know who all of your employees are, and we know what their role is, what their job title is, and what part of the country they work in. And in this way, we don't have to burden them with unnecessary information. They don't have to search for policies because the only policies they're going to see are the ones that pertain to them. And we can also bring attention to certain things that have changed since last week. We can provide footnotes. We can capture electronic signatures. A lot of times we have employees signing off to acknowledge that they understood the policy. We might need to show version history of these policies to show each time there was a deletion or a change to a policy. We need to track when that change was made, who last approved it. And again, from the original policy back in 2013 all the way until October 11, 2017, we have 4 years of evolution over this one policy. And we need to keep this on file in archives, all the previous versions, for compliance. Or perhaps we need to restore that version to an older version. So the policies are very important. They become kind of really the cornerstone to the rules and regulations of what everyone is supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be doing it. And the interface for each user. Now, I could be logging in just as a regular employee, and it might show me, the latest policies and which ones changed most recently. It might also show me to the policy author how to add new policies, how to upload a new one. It might show me here are the ones requesting your approval, or here are the ones still in workflow awaiting to be changed, which is another thing we want to bring up. Any policy in workflow that's in the state of change, we can employ pessimistic lock. And that means that that policy is no longer available for editing until that first change is conducted. We can, of course, allow them to upload Word documents or PDF. New policy here. The description of that policy. And then, of course, even the upload of that policy, whatever that might be. So we might be uploading a Word document or a PDF document, whatever the case might be. They might tag or classify what that policy relates to. So this metadata or classification is very key because as we upload this policy, we'll know how to group this with other policies. We'll know which topical relationships it has. For that administrator, they might even say this is a policy that's only for our dealers, or only for our finance people, or only for nurses within the ecosystem. Or maybe it's a policy for everyone within the organization. So these options that we see in this dashboard are, of course, going to change based on who it is who's logged in. John is an administrator, so he gets to see changes and see things in workflow. But an ordinary individual might just see when they log in, here are the latest policies, or here's what changed since last week. So policies are very important to making sure everyone is on board. Another thing we like to say is that policies, someone reading a policy or watching a video or a PowerPoint slide deck, whatever supports that policy, how do we do this, that, or the other? We can now gracefully integrate learning management, which is a really big deal because it's not just a question of did John log in and download the policy. We know that based on that user activity. We need to know a little bit more. We need to know that not only did he read the policy, but he passed the test around the policy. So the learning or the receipt that we have that he understands what to do is integrated within the policy itself. Now, we provide our own learning management tools, but if you had your own learning management system, we can connect the dots between our policy management and your learning management. And we find that what this does is it helps to provide a culture of learning, because when John logs in and reads articles, we're tracking that, but we're also tracking what tests he's taken, which tests he's passed, which ones he's failed. So for the client it becomes, or for the employee, it becomes kind of a self-service area to see where am I, have I completed all of my necessary prerequisites. We can also offer points, meaning we might provide incentive for people to get more involved, meaning everything that a particular employee might do online may entitle them to some points. And the learning culture is very important because we want John to be proud to be top of the heap here in terms of his involvement, compared to, John down here, or Jim Venus down here, who hasn't done anything. So, we can provide now a competitive environment to show that people are involved. And we've also found that a lot of this information is frankly boring. Employees find this stuff very boring. So if we don't put a carrot on a stick and offer them some type of an incentive or reward for complying within the law for what we do, that might be kind of difficult. So we call this gamification. It is not something you need to take advantage of, meaning it's just an extra bell and whistle. You can just use our tool for policy management, plug it into your intranet. But if you wanted to integrate that with learning or gamification, you certainly could. So the management of PDF and Word documents for your policies is something we do all the time. For some clients, and again, this is another option, you don't have to use these options, but since we're on the topic of policy management, we think that this definitely applies. Policies are very complex documents because policy example here, I'm going to create a new policy using this function. And again, this is an optional function you don't have to use, but we think it represents kind of the future of how policies should be managed. What we see here on the left is a menu. And this menu allows me to pull the appropriate language and use that. And that language might be coming right from legal, or right from marketing, or right from the government agency who is requiring that we comply with that specific thing. And here I am pulling in those various clauses. So that little paragraph I just pulled over could have just been released by the government 2 days ago or 5 minutes ago. So we want to be able to work fresh from the oven when it comes to these policies. We also might want to include digital assets. So that's also part of policy management, because we might have diagrams or how to deal with this, or we might have a training video. So all of the assets that we're dealing with need to be in a construct of reusability. And when we go to create our new document now, I might wish to select what type of template I'm using. So also with policies, we might have a variety of different policies, each with their own output or template. So pulling from the source of truth, whether that be the government or your legal department or marketing, we have now just created a new policy. Here is the output for that policy in PDF format. Here are the table of contents. Sometimes these policies can be very long-winded and have page numbers and be a large collection. So if you are building something that's very long and has all sorts of sections and subsections, we can actually dynamically render the table of contents. We can also include this little badge down here is digital rights management. Again, just a function, just an option. But should you need to embed that document when it's downloaded with personalized information, meaning who downloaded it on which day, we can now tether that. We could scan that document in the future and tell you exactly if it was out of date, when the person printed it, to limit your liability. All of the content that I pulled into the document is also part of this solution here. And we now have the composite document and part of the ecosystem. That same document might have a different output. It might have a flipbook format. This which is conducive sometimes for mobile devices. This entire view of the policy needs to be responsive, because we might be dealing with mobile devices along the way. So policy management is something we take great pride in. We might also need to report on where these policies are, how many policies have been changed, where are they in the scheme of workflow, how long is it taken to approve the policies, how many people have downloaded the policies. So when it comes to reporting, it's really up to your imagination, and we see that there's a lot of different stakeholders within the organization who need to monitor reporting to see when all of these things have changed, or if we are, one popular one is a side-by-side comparison to show your policies compared to the government agency who's requiring you to follow these policies. So that way we can show you little check marks or red X's to show you where you're compliant and where you're falling outside of that governmental compliance. So there's a lot of information here, but our job is to make sense of all of this for you. Part of doing that is in migrating your old policies into this system. And without getting too technical, but I think it's important to demystify and prove that we can do it, we have a tool that's very much like a vacuum cleaner. It's called data transformation. And it allows us to pull your records out of the old Oracle system or the old SharePoint or SQL system, or you might have these files in a shared folder somewhere within your organization, just a shared drive. And it doesn't matter where they are, we have the ability to reach out to where they're living now, to map all of the various fields around those policies. These would be the title of the policy, the date created, what they deal with, that sort of thing, which role of which user can see them. And we pull them all into Centralpoint. By doing so, we are now able to search these policies, find these policies, and start managing them on the web more intelligently. Another big part of this is in here those records that just came in just now. Into this module, mapped appropriately. Another nice thing we like to do is that when there is a change to a policy, rather than send out an alert to everyone saying, everyone that this policy affects, click here to see that there's been a change. Well, that requires that they have to read it or they have to discern what changed from last week. So we can even set up intelligent alerts here, what we call smart contracts, that distill down just what changed since last week. So, for example, new employees might get a link to the full new policy. Seasoned veteran employees who have read the policy 14 times prior might get a little snippet that says, here's what we're doing a little bit different this week. Saves everyone time, makes it a lot easier for them to digest these changes to laws and procedures. And that's what we aim to do, which is to streamline the whole flow of everyone being part of that learning culture around the changes to your policies and procedures. For more information, please contact us. We'd love to set up a demo for you and show you specifically how we can customize this solution just for your organization, and how we can also integrate that within your existing intranet.